today's book review, we take a look at James Franklin's The Art of War. Step 1, give the ball to the other team. Step 2.
And a finance tip from Michigan State, who can teach you how to live on just 3 quarters a week.
It's time to wake up, college football! All right, an eventful Week 7 all across the country, but first, here are Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin on the sidelines, a weekly occurrence. What do you see when you see these two bickering?
Squabbling couple at the airport.
That's a very specific thing.
What do you mean you packed only socks? You said you always need more socks.
I need my feet warm.
But we need other clothes too.
If you want to do the packing, you do the packing.
Why didn't you get cash?
I figured once we were in Cancun, we would get it. But then I realized it was pesos. Yeah, so that was Alabama's night against Arkansas.
Awkward.
It was uncomfortable. Yeah. But let's get into actual offense, because there isn't that to talk about in Alabama-Arkansas, because Baylor and TCU, 24 points Baylor needed. And the fact that I'm saying needed is sort of a weird way to phrase it, but they put 24 points on the board in the last 10 and a half minutes and won this game.
Yeah, and what was nice is that they were able to do it running the ball and passing the ball.
Yep.
And getting a little bit of help from the referees towards the end of the game.
A little bit, yeah. It was an awesome performance from Baylor, one that they needed because somebody needed to sort of distance themselves at least a little bit from the pack in the Big 12. They ran the ball, they passed the ball, almost 800 yards of total offense, and they actually did, even though they give up, 58 points to TCU, Trevon Boykin has had a fantastic season. He didn't complete 50% of his passes, so they did a good job against him in the second half. So,
also, it's probably not a knock against TCU in the long run. They hung
absolutely
with
not.
A really tough Baylor team on the road, gave Bryce Petty fits until those last 10 minutes of the game. Very impressive team that is still going to give a lot of teams trouble.
And nobody has the receiving depth that Baylor has anyway. So, what was your awesome thing of the week?
I'm going to go with Mississippi State.
Okay.
We've talked previously on our show about Dak Prescott and how he's awesome, Darren Wilson, how he's awesome, Josh Robinson.
Yep.
But I want to talk about the defense because Mississippi State jumped out to this 21-0 lead, and then things got a little dicey.
Right.
They started turning the ball over. They started making weird decisions like, hey, let's have a punter throw the ball. But Mississippi State's defense really locked down Auburn, limited them to field goal attempts, and stopped the leaking.
A pretty terrific Auburn offense, mind you.
Yeah.
An experienced winning on the road in huge spots.
So the fact that they can lean on their defense when the offense is not clicking exactly how it should be, when it's making mistakes, is a really good sign, because they're going to have to play other games down the road where you're going to go through a rough patch, and when you can say, we turn the ball over, but the defense is going to limit them to 3. That's such an advantage to have.
It's the difference between a good team and a definitive top 5 team is one that can win when things are going poorly in certain facets. And Mississippi State is probably, right now, are they the best team in the country?
It's hard to say that they're not. They have such a great-looking resume.
Yep.
Obviously, we'll see. Florida State will have a good test coming up next week against Notre Dame. Maybe that will put them back in the top of the conversation. Who knows?
True.
But I don't even know if Mississippi State had the most dominant defensive performance of the week.
Who was that to?
Surprisingly, it might have been Georgia. Because they went to Columbia. Obviously, it's been a horrible end of the week with everything that's happened.
Losing Todd Gurley.
Yes. And the defense, Missouri only ran 4 plays in Georgia territory.
Is that not a lot?
We looked at the box score at the end of this game, and you said, Missouri's run 47 plays or something.
Not even, 42.
And it still seemed like too many somehow. Every time Missouri's offense was on the field, they looked terrible, and they couldn't do anything. I don't know if that says a lot
That's a terrible recruiting pitch, by the way.
I don't know if that says a lot about Georgia's defense taking a big step forward.
Right.
Or maybe that Mocktoberfest is just shut down. We're not holding it.
It is tumbleweeds in the event space. Yeah, Missouri is in a place right now. They've been beat up on both lines, but Matty Mock certainly not living up to what I think not just everybody expected of him this season, showing flashes last year, but losing the skill talent that they did. Missouri certainly has struggled, and Mock has struggled. And Georgia, again, it's the defense, not even just the defense. Nick Chubb, the future to be injured Georgia running back who ran it almost 40 times, they were great in all facets. To me, the unexpected thing beyond that was Notre Dame this week. having Florida State next week, getting this North Carolina team that we know is talented, at least on offense.
Right.
That has potential on offense. But for Notre Dame to show so little ahead of Florida State and to really struggle defensively, something that they've been very good at this season, especially up front. Marquise Williams ran all over, threw all over. Notre Dame ultimately the better team. But it was certainly a step back and the first sign of sort of blemish from Notre Dame this season.
Yeah, especially because they won this game, and ultimately that's all that
matters. And they did run the ball better, but that's North Carolina's defense. Yeah.
Right. It was troubling because you would like to think that this Notre Dame team can close you out down the stretch.
Right.
And it was more like they just sort of stumbled their way to the finish line choking on a pretzel. But they, a win is a win. They will have a chance to prove that this was a look ahead,
situation for next week's game. Yeah,
exactly. But it doesn't give you a whole lot of reasons to look at Notre Dame and say, yeah, they're going to beat Florida State.
Okay, so when you look at the landscape of games that mattered to you, what was the meaningful thing?
I'm going to do you a little favor here. I'm going to say good things about Oregon.
Oh, listen.
Oregon offense obviously had a night to forget last week against Arizona, and they totally turned it around against UCLA. Granted, that may be because they were playing UCLA, but they didn't turn the ball over. They gave up 0 sacks. They were only in third down 7 times. They showed a good mix of run and pass. They were efficient in both of those areas. And the Pac-12 is such a mess right now, especially with, everybody losing to everybody else.
Right.
It's one of those things where if Oregon can just keep its offense running, have an okay defense, that may be enough to win the conference.
Continue to get healthier on the offensive line and on defense. Eric Armstead, their best defensive lineman, out yesterday against UCLA. UCLA at this point is one of those, they appear to be a team, they're wearing a beautiful shiny suit made out of garbage. That's basically, UCLA has just blue chipper after blue chipper in their defensive front, did nothing against Oregon offense. Oregon couldn't run the ball all year long consistently, especially on the inside. You play UCLA like
Royce Freeman's ripping off 8 yards a carry.
First 100-yard rusher of the season for Oregon. So UCLA is the cure for the common offense at this point. All right. To me, because thank you for taking the Oregon hit, Ole Miss going to Kyle Field, going to Texas A&M. We knew the defense was fantastic. Bo Wallace has been mostly very good this season, but for him to be so good through the air, just efficient, and on the ground, Ole Miss still can't really run the ball, but for them to just lay Texas A&M out, they shut them out in the first half. They eventually win. Texas A&M scores a little bit in the second half, but mostly meaningless.
That's a final score. If you didn't watch this game, it wasn't as close as that score indicates.
Yeah, there was a lot of this. There was a lot of that land sharking for Ole Miss. So at this point, the Egg Bowl is now the most meaningful game in college football.
Yeah,
this season.
I called that. Did you not? Did you not see that?
Everybody was saying that.
Yeah.
The epicenter of college football.
Hey, but Iron Bowl, that's an Outback Bowl play-in game. That counts. It
is particularly that's next week's meaningful thing. And finally, and we know the Pac-12, not even just north, south, just as a whole, completely insane. You should stay up until all hours of the night to watch it. Arizona, opportunity to win the game, 36-yard field goal. Here it is. Everything looks clean except for the kick itself.
Oh, that's a foul. That's a foul. That's free throws.
That's a tech. That's a
gotta
tech.
Be free throw. But given that it's the Pac-12, he would have missed those free throws.
Yeah, he definitely would have missed those free throws. Aw, Pac-12. His name is Ryan. My name is Dan. We will see you next week.